The wind blew through the tall grass at Heartland Ranch, the sound of hooves faint in the distance. But then, a figure emerged, walking slowly across the land. Someone familiar, someone long gone. Ty Borden. After years of silence, he was back. But why? And what had happened to him in the time he'd been away? The family would have to find out, but it wouldn't be easy. His return wasn't just about him coming back home. It was about everything changing. The ranch was alive with its usual rhythm. Amy worked in the barn, grooming horses with the calm focus she was known for. Jack was in the stable, fixing up tools, his strong hands steady as ever. Lou was in the office, balancing the books, her mind always moving a mile a minute. It was a peaceful morning, but everything shifted in an instant. Amy paused. The familiar sound of hooves had stopped. She raised her head, staring out the barn door, squinting against the sunlight. Something felt different. She stepped outside, the breeze hitting her face. In the distance, she saw him, a figure she never thought she'd see again. Her heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be Ty, Amy whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Her pulse quickened. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was him, Ty Borden, walking toward the ranch, looking older, more worn, but unmistakably him. Amy took a few steps forward, her legs suddenly shaky, and then stopped. She didn't know if she should run to him or stay where she was. He had left without a word, vanished without a trace. And now, here he was, walking back as if nothing had ever happened. Inside the house, Jack was the first to notice. He had a sharp eye, always alert to changes in the world around him. He looked up from his work, and his eyes narrowed. The faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He knew how much this meant to Amy. He didn't know what had happened between her and Ty, but he knew this moment would stir up more than just memories. It would stir up everything. Is that? Jack started, but Lou, having followed him to the window, finished the thought for him. Yes, it's Ty. The tension in the room was thick. No one knew what to expect. No one knew what kind of return this would be. But one thing was certain. Everything at Heartland was about to change. Ty's return was the last thing they expected, but the first thing they needed, whether they liked it or not. The wind shifted again, and the familiar smell of hay and earth filled the air. But this time it felt different. Ty had arrived, but the questions were endless. Amy stood there, frozen in place, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. He had walked away so suddenly years ago, leaving nothing but an empty space in her heart and a silence that stretched for miles. And now, here he was, standing in front of her. But who was he now? Ty looked at Amy, his face a mixture of guilt and regret. His eyes told a story of pain and loss, a story she hadn't been a part of. There was a distance between them now, one that went deeper than the years he had been gone. He didn't know where to begin, how to explain. How do you apologize for leaving someone you loved with no explanation? Amy finally found her voice, but it shook. Why, Ty? Why did you leave? Without a word, without a trace. Her words were laced with confusion and hurt. She had spent years wondering if she was ever truly enough for him, if their love had been real or just a fleeting moment in time. She had lived with the questions, and now, standing face to face with him, she didn't know what answer she was hoping for. Ty opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, he realized there were no simple words for what had happened. He had left because he needed to find something within himself. He needed space to figure out who he was and what he truly wanted in life. But now, as he looked into Amy's eyes, he wondered if it was too late to make up for all the time he had lost. I don't know how to explain, Amy. I was broken. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I didn't want to hurt you by staying when I couldn't even help myself. I never meant to disappear on you. It was the hardest decision I ever made. His voice cracked, and for a brief moment, the man standing before her seemed as fragile as a leaf in the wind. Amy's heart ached. She wanted to believe him, to let go of the years of pain and confusion, but it wasn't that simple. How could she trust him again after he had just walked away without a word? How could she trust him when he had torn apart everything they had built? Years, Ty. You left me with nothing. How am I supposed to just forget all that? Her voice was soft, but the pain in it was unmistakable. Ty took a deep breath. I don't expect you to forget. I hope you can see that I'm not the same person anymore. I don't want to lose you, Amy. Not again. But Amy wasn't sure if she could forgive him. She wasn't sure if she could ever truly understand why he left and what it meant for their future. And as the moments passed, with nothing but the wind between them, both of them knew this was just the beginning of something far more complicated. Ty's return was a mystery that needed unraveling, but the question remained, could they rebuild what was lost, or had the past already destroyed them both? The morning that began with hope quickly shifted into something darker. Ty's return didn't just stir Amy's heart, it sent ripples through the entire Heartland family. Each person had their own feelings, their own thoughts about why Ty had disappeared, and now that he was back, they each had their own questions. The ranch, once a place of peace and unity, was now a battlefield of unspoken tensions, confusion, and unresolved emotions. Jack, always a steady hand on the ranch, didn't show the same joy that Amy had when she saw Ty. His face was a mask of quiet suspicion. Sure, Ty had been part of the family, his son-in-law, Amy's love, a good worker, but Jack wasn't quick to forgive. His experiences told him not to trust the sudden returns, especially when they came with no answers. He knew the damage that could be done when people didn't talk, when things were left unsaid. And right now, there was too much left unsaid between Ty and the family. Just like that, huh? Jack muttered, standing by the barn as he watched Ty approach the house. He crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. He had always believed in hard work, loyalty, and trust. Ty had walked away from all that without a second thought. Was he back to stay, or just for another round of pain? In the house, Lou was struggling with her own mixed emotions. Ty had been like a brother to her. She had seen the good in him, seen how much he had meant to Amy, but she couldn't help feeling betrayed by his sudden disappearance. Their family had changed in his absence. Amy had grown stronger, more independent. They had all moved on, in their own ways. Was Ty trying to slip back into that? Was he just going to pick up where he left off? Or was he truly ready to face the consequences of his absence? Her voice trembled when she spoke, though she tried to sound composed. He just shows up, after all this time. He just expects us to pick up like nothing happened? Lou's frustration was clear. It wasn't just about Ty. It was about the sudden shift in everything they had worked hard to rebuild as a family. Lou had spent so long protecting Amy, and now Ty's return felt like a threat to all the progress they had made. Amy had hoped the hardest part would be seeing Ty again. But now, with the family divided, the real challenge was just beginning. No one could deny that Ty had been a part of their past, but was he truly a part of their future? Could they just erase the years of hurt and confusion, or had too much time passed? As the family gathered, the tension in the room was palpable. Amy wanted to defend Ty, to give him a chance to explain, but the others weren't as willing to forgive so easily. Jack's silence spoke volumes, and Lou's eyes were filled with skepticism. Even the younger members of the family, who barely remembered Ty, felt the weight of his return. They didn't know him like Amy did, but they sensed the disturbance in the air. This wasn't just a happy reunion. It was a reckoning. Maybe he's back for a reason, Amy said quietly, but even she wasn't sure what that reason was. Was it love? Regret? Or something else entirely? Ty stood in the doorway, watching the family discuss him, feeling every ounce of their doubt and anger. He knew this was the moment he had to face. His past was laid bare before him, but the only thing he could do now was hope for a chance to prove that he wasn't the man who left them all behind. And with each passing second, the silence grew heavier. No one was sure what came next. Would they find a way to move forward together? Or would Ty's return be the final crack in the family's foundation? The ranch, once so familiar, now felt like a foreign land to Amy. The walls of the house, the stables, even the horses she had spent years with, seemed to stand silent, waiting. And then there was Ty, standing just outside, his presence like a ripple in a pond, disrupting everything in its path. Amy hesitated before stepping toward him, her heartbeat pounding in her chest. Every part of her wanted to rush to him, to wrap her arms around him and ask him to explain everything. But another part of her was afraid. Afraid of the hurt he had caused. Afraid of the part of herself that had shut him out so completely. She wasn't the same person she had been when he left. She had grown, changed, and yet, seeing him there felt like a moment frozen in time. How could they ever go back to what they once were? Ty stood still, as though waiting for Amy to make the first move, knowing that the weight of everything he had done lay between them like an invisible wall. His eyes were filled with so many emotions: guilt, love, regret, but none of it mattered. He had walked away, and nothing could take that back. Amy, he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. He reached out, but stopped halfway, as if afraid to get too close. The distance between them was more than just physical. It was everything he had left behind. The years, the silence, the pain. Amy swallowed hard, trying to hold back the emotions, threatening to spill over. She didn't want to be angry, but she couldn't help it. She had waited alone for so long, wondering if she had been enough. You left me, Ty, she said, her voice shaking. You just disappeared without a word. I don't know if I can forget that. Her words stung more than he had expected. He had always known that his departure would cause pain, but hearing it now, seeing the hurt in Amy's eyes, it was like a blade twisting in his chest. I didn't know what to do, Amy. I couldn't be the man I was when I left. I needed time to figure things out. His voice cracked, and for a moment, he looked like a man who had lost everything. The love of his life, the family, and the life they had dreamed of together. Amy stepped back slightly, as though unsure if she could take any more. She had thought about this moment so many times over the years, but now that it was real, it felt impossible to make sense of it all. He had left her with questions that still haunted her. Why hadn't he reached out? Why hadn't he come back sooner? I don't even know who you are anymore, she whispered, looking at him through the haze of her emotions. You disappeared for so long, Ty, and now you just show up, like everything is supposed to be the same. Ty's heart sank. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you, but I can't change the past. I can only be here now. If you'll let me, I want to try to fix what I broke. I want to be the man I promised I would be. Amy took a deep breath, torn between the longing to hold him again and the fear of being hurt once more. Could she trust him? Could she open her heart again to the man who had left her without a word? And if she did, what would it mean for their future? The silence between them stretched out, heavy with the weight of their history. Neither knew how to bridge the gap, how to heal the wounds that had festered for so long. But in that moment, as they stood there, staring at each other, they both knew that whatever happened next, it would change everything. For better or worse, their story was far from over. Ty reached out again, this time closing the distance between them. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said softly. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I'm here for the long haul. Not as the man who left, but as the man who's come back to stay. Amy hesitated. And then, as if the past could no longer hold her back, she took a tentative step forward. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A start, a chance. And in that moment, that was all they needed. Ty's return had set the wheels in motion, but the real storm was just beginning. While Amy was caught between the past and present, trying to make sense of the man who had walked away and the one standing before her, the rest of the family had begun to wrestle with their own feelings about his return. Lou was the first to voice what everyone else was thinking, though no one had the courage to say it aloud. She had always been the protector of the family, the one who kept everything in balance, and Ty's sudden reappearance felt like an earthquake beneath their feet. She had watched Amy suffer, had seen her struggle through the emptiness Ty left behind, and now, standing in front of her, was the man who had caused so much pain. Lou's loyalty to her sister was unwavering, but her fear for the cracks Ty's return might cause in their family was just as strong. I don't get it, Lou said, her voice barely above a whisper, but laced with tension. You just show up like nothing happened? Like you didn't just leave us all hanging? She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at Ty like a challenge he hadn't yet faced. We moved on, Ty. Amy moved on. Ty swallowed hard. Lou's words stung, not because they were untrue, but because they were a harsh reminder of the years he had lost, the people he had let down. I didn't know how to come back, Lou. I thought I needed to get myself together first. But I'm here now. I'm ready to face whatever consequences there are. Lou shook her head, her frustration bubbling to the surface. And what? You think you can just pick up where you left off? That the last few years meant nothing? Her voice wavered with emotion. You left us in the middle of everything, Ty, and now you're back, expecting us to just forgive you? Ty's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He had known this wouldn't be easy, but hearing it from Lou, from someone who had always seen him as a part of the family, felt like a punch to the gut. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, he said quietly. I just want a chance. Amy stepped into the room, hearing the tension in Lou's voice. She wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. She had her own pain to work through, but hearing her sister speak with such raw honesty hit her hard. She had been angry too. Angry at Ty for leaving. Angry at herself for letting him back in. But now, with Lou so upset, it all felt like it was unraveling faster than she could keep up. Jack was silent, but his presence in the room was as heavy as ever. He watched the exchange with a calmness that only masked the storm brewing inside him. Ty had been like a son to him. They had spent years working side by side, building something together. And when Ty had left, it had felt like the family had lost a vital piece. But Jack had learned not to rush into things, not to make hasty decisions. He knew better than anyone how complicated emotions could be, but that didn't mean he was ready to forgive Ty just yet. I've been through a lot, Jack, Ty said, his voice raw. I know I can't just fix things overnight, but I'm here now, and I want to make things right. Jack's eyes softened for a moment, the years of wisdom showing in his gaze. You think that just showing up fixes everything? You think you can undo all the damage you've done just by saying you're sorry? The silence that followed was thick. Amy's chest tightened. She had known this wouldn't be easy, but she had hoped for more understanding, more patience. But the more she heard, the more she realized that Ty's return was not just about healing their relationship, it was about the entire family coming to terms with their past and their future. And they were all struggling to find their footing. Ty, I don't know if we can just pick up where we left off, Amy said quietly, her eyes locked on his. I don't know if I can trust you again. And I'm not sure anyone else here can either. She glanced at Lou, then Jack, seeing the skepticism in their eyes. It was clear Ty had a long road ahead if he wanted to truly come back into their lives. Ty stood there, feeling the weight of their judgment, knowing he deserved it. He had left them all behind without a word, without a trace, and now he was back, asking for something he wasn't sure he could ever earn again, their trust. But as the silence stretched on, Ty realized that this was just the first battle. If he wanted to heal the wounds he had caused, if he wanted to prove he wasn't the same man who had walked away, he would have to fight for it. And it wasn't just the past he needed to mend, it was the future of the family, one piece at a time. Ty's return wasn't just about reconnecting with Amy or mending broken family ties. It was something deeper, something the family had never fully anticipated. The peaceful rhythms of Heartland, the routines that had held everyone together, had been built on a delicate balance that was now threatened. And with Ty back, there was more at stake than just emotions. It was the very foundation of the ranch itself. The landscape outside Heartland, vast and quiet, had seen many changes in the years since Ty had been gone. Amy had grown, not just emotionally but in her role as the heart of the ranch. She had been the one to keep everything together, to face the hard decisions while Ty was absent. Now, with him standing on the land they had once shared, things felt different. There was an unspoken tension in the air, one that even the horses seemed to sense. Ty had never been part of the ranch's daily operations in the same way as Amy. But now he saw things differently. After the time he had spent away, he realized that Heartland was more than just a place. It was a legacy, something that needed protecting. And he wasn't sure where he fit into that anymore. As Amy walked alongside Ty that afternoon, a silence hung between them. This place, it's changed, hasn't it? Ty said, his voice breaking the stillness. Amy nodded, her gaze sweeping over the land. It has, but not just this place. I've changed too, Ty. We all have. Ty felt the weight of her words, and for the first time, he began to understand that the ranch wasn't just about fixing fences and tending horses. It was about community. It was about the people who made Heartland what it was, and how deeply tied they were to each other. It was about trust, and that, perhaps, was the hardest thing to rebuild. But there was something else hanging over them, something more urgent. Heartland wasn't just in the process of healing, it was facing new challenges. In the years since Ty had left, others had tried to fill the gaps he had left behind. Amy had been running the ranch, yes, but that hadn't stopped the rise of outside pressures. Economic struggles, land deals, and the constant fight to keep the ranch in the family had been just a few of the obstacles that had popped up in his absence. And now, with him back, Ty realized there was more than just emotional wounds to heal. There were practical challenges that demanded their attention. The land was at risk, and the future of Heartland was anything but secure. Ty, there's more going on here than you think, Amy said, her voice somber. We're fighting to keep this place together. I don't know if you can see it from where you're standing, but we're on the edge. Things aren't as stable as they used to be. Ty's eyes widened, a mixture of concern and realization washing over him. He had known there would be consequences to his return, but this was different. This wasn't just about mending his relationship with Amy, it was about saving the very place they had built their lives around. I didn't know, Ty admitted quietly, the truth of it hitting him harder than any confrontation could. But I'm here now, and I'll help, whatever it takes. I won't run away again. Amy didn't say anything for a moment, the weight of their shared history still heavy between them. But her gaze softened, the resolve in her eyes telling Ty that she, too, was starting to believe in this second chance. It's not going to be easy, Ty. This is a different fight than what we've dealt with before. Ty took a step forward, determination in his eyes. Then let's fight it together. As they stood there, looking out over the vast ranch that had always been their home, both Amy and Ty knew that this was more than just a reunion, it was a beginning. Ty had no idea what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for sure. Heartland was more than just the land. It was the people who fought to protect it. And now, after all the years apart, Ty was ready to be part of that fight. The bigger picture was coming into focus, but it wasn't just about saving the ranch, it was about saving each other. The road ahead would be hard, filled with uncertainty, and not without sacrifice. But with Ty's return, the hope for a future at Heartland was alive again, stronger than it had been in years. And for the first time in a long while, there was a sense that the family, though scarred, could heal together. As the sun began to dip behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across Heartland, the weight of the day settled over the ranch. Ty stood at the edge of the barn, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, looking out at the familiar sight that had once been home. Amy stood beside him, her presence quiet but strong, the sound of their breathing the only noise between them. The air felt heavy with the promise of something unspoken, something that neither of them fully understood, but both sensed in their bones. What now? Amy finally asked, her voice breaking the silence. Her question was simple, yet layered with more meaning than the words suggested. What came next for them? For Heartland? For their family? Ty turned to her, his face serious but soft, his eyes searching hers for answers he didn't have. I don't know, Amy, but I know I want to be here. I want to be part of this part of us again. I want to prove to you, to everyone, that I can be the man you thought I was. That I can help, not just with the ranch, but with everything. Amy looked out over the land, the place that had always been her anchor, her purpose. But with Ty's return, that anchor felt both familiar and unfamiliar. The trust they had built together was now a fragile thread, tangled with the past. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that everything could go back to the way it was. But years had passed, and nothing was as simple as it once was. I don't know if I can go back to that, Amy said softly, her gaze fixed ahead. I don't know if we can just pick up where we left off, Ty. Things have changed. I've changed. Ty's heart clenched at her words. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. The last time they had been together, Everything had been full of hope, but the years between then and now had changed them both. He wasn't the same man who had left, and Amy wasn't the same woman who had stayed behind. I don't expect things to be the same, Ty said quietly. I'm not asking for that, but I want to start somewhere, even if it's just one step at a time. Amy turned to face him, her expression unreadable. One step, she echoed, her voice heavy with uncertainty. Do you think one step will be enough to fix everything we've lost? Ty wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her that everything would be fine, that the years apart wouldn't matter, that their love would somehow make everything fall back into place. But the truth was, he didn't know. He didn't know what the future held. All he knew was that he had spent far too long away from the only place that truly mattered. And now, he was ready to fight for it no matter what. I think it's worth trying, he said finally, his voice filled with conviction. I'm not asking for everything to change overnight, Amy, but I'm asking for a chance to rebuild, to fight for what we had, and what we could have again. Amy studied him, her eyes searching for something in his face, something real, something she could hold on to. The years of waiting, of uncertainty, of hoping for something that never came, had left their mark on her. She had learned to stand on her own, to not rely on anyone else for her happiness. And yet, standing here with Ty, she found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, they could build something new, something different, but still worth fighting for. Ty took a tentative step toward her, his gaze steady. I'm here now, Amy, and I'm not going anywhere. Not again. The words hung between them, unspoken promises and fears swirling in the air. Amy felt her walls begin to crack, the icy fortress around her heart slowly starting to melt. But the path ahead wasn't clear, and the future was uncertain. What if she opened herself up again, only to be hurt? What if Ty couldn't stay? Or worse, what if he left again? But then, she saw it in his eyes, the sincerity, the determination. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, it could be enough. She took a deep breath, her heart racing. One step, Ty. That's all I can offer right now. Ty smiled, a small but hopeful gesture, and nodded. Then we take it together. As they stood, side by side, staring out at the ranch that had always been their home, a new chapter began to unfold. The past wasn't something they could forget, but it wasn't something that had to define them either. They had both changed, but maybe that was the key to building something stronger, something that would last. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over Heartland, and with it, a new hope began to take root. Ty had returned, but now, it was time to face the future one step at a time.